Thank you so much. I want to bring in Phil Holloway. He is a criminal defense attorney, a former assistant district attorney, and a former police officer. This is one of the most gruesome crimes that we've covered in quite some time, and for the police force there, the most gruesome, bloody murder scene they have ever seen in their lives. There is a forensics expert that tells Fox that the blood-soaked crime scene poses a major challenge, he calls it, for investigators. Joseph Morgan is a distinguished scholar of applied forensics at Jacksonville State University. He says this, and then I'd like to talk to you about it.
It's going to be a long process as they attempt to kind of unravel these commingled samples in order to get in there to examine for DNA. And, you know, a very curious thing here is that when you have sharp force injuries like this, many times, because it's in a fevered kind of posture when it comes to these attackers, many times they'll actually injure themselves. So they could have biological sample that's mixed up with the victims as well.
Let's talk about the biological samples of blood and DNA that are mixed in. Most likely, the suspect or suspects did suffer some sort of injuries, considering there are defense wounds on the victims. So how does that make it harder to find the suspect and their DNA when it's mixed up in such a combination of different DNA?
Yeah, Julie, good morning. This is obviously a very complex and complicated crime scene. The way I like to look at it, and Joseph is not at all wrong. He's very correct in the amount of blood that was here, but you've got multiple crime scenes, basically one for each victim and possibly elsewhere inside the house and maybe even outside the house. Police have to basically break those down, process them almost like miniature independent crime scenes, and then kind of put them together to see what's left. The blood absolutely can be commingled, but with DNA and modern forensics, I think eventually law enforcement, especially now that they've got the FBI and all those resources that have been brought to bear, they will be able to isolate the blood from each individual victim, and then they're going to look to see if there's anything else. Is there any blood that's not able to be attributed to a victim or a resident of the house? But on top of DNA, you've got possibly footprints, you've got palm prints, you've got fingerprints, you've got shoe prints, for example. Think about the O.J. Simpson case. They were able to identify that you've got a certain type of dress shoe by the virtue of what type of footprint they found in the blood. So there's lots there. So the fact that we don't know the answers does not mean that police don't have some answers. They have lots of forensic evidence at this point, and it would not surprise me if there's not at least a person or two that they're kind of zeroing in on. They've been there for days, as we pointed out, and they have uncovered quite a bit of forensic information, I'm sure.
Yeah, you talk about footprints. There's light snow on the ground, footprints in the blood from the shoes. I mean, they've got plenty of evidence, but right now they do say that there is no suspect. Jim Clemente, he's a retired FBI supervisory special agent and criminal behavioral analysis expert. He tells Fox that he believes that the suspect is likely a young man and someone who has not carried out such violent crimes before. This is what he says. This is probably more of a compulsive kind of person that would put him at a younger age and maybe in the age group or just above the victims, going into an occupied dwelling with 6 people in different rooms in the middle of the night is an extremely high-risk crime. Unless he knows one or more of the people, this offender did not just randomly choose this location. This is a personal crime. The coroner says that it most likely was the same weapon, the same knife that was used to stab all 4 victims. But when you investigate a crime scene like this and it's a knife that's being used as the weapon of choice, this is a front-face interaction. This is a personal crime. What do you make of his analysis of the description of a potential suspect?
Well, look, with a knife and you've got multiple victims, this is not a crime that can be committed in, a minute or two, like if there was a firearm. This is something where the killer or killers, we can't rule out the fact that there may be more than one, but you've got the person in there for an extended period of time because they've got to kill and fight with potentially not one person, but 4, and they might be in different parts of the house. So there's lots of information that was left behind. And by information, I mean evidence. The killer left clues. The police are going to find those clues, and I'm confident that at the end of the day, they will solve this horrific murder.
All right, Phil Holloway, thank you so much for talking to us. It's just tragic. Hopefully we get a suspect soon.